Okay, let's speak now to Mu Sochua, a member of the group ASEAN Parliamentarians for Human Rights and a former lawmaker from Cambodia. Thank you so much, Mu, for joining us here on the programme. I just want to pick up where our correspondent Jonathan Head left off, really talking about this coup in Myanmar being a blow to ASEAN.
Yes, the ASEAN Parliamentarians for Human Rights is very concerned with this response by the military junta using real guns, real bullets to kill the people of Myanmar again and again is not acceptable, and ASEAN as a regional association must act by not accepting this type of violence and not taking into consideration the bloodshed that could go beyond Myanmar.
But what exactly are you asking the international community, ASEAN, the UN to do? Because frankly, from what we're seeing at the moment, sanctions have been issued by the United States. It hasn't seemed to deter or stop the military. In fact, the violence has gotten worse. And in the last few days, we've seen a very weak statement by ASEAN saying, rather than condemning the violence, they've said that they are following the developments.
That's exactly the problem of ASEAN. ASEAN as a regional association must adhere to its charter, the charter that calls on the protection of human rights, democracy, rule of law. Then the ASEAN members must not forget the charter. The reality is that some ASEAN members, for example, Cambodia, would speak with Myanmar, and Cambodia today, which is ruled by Mr. Hun Sen for over 35 years. And you have other ASEAN members that are still communist regimes, and you have one-party rule. In ASEAN, there is a political crisis. ASEAN as a whole has to reevaluate itself, and then we call on ASEAN to respect the voices of the peoples of ASEAN.
I suppose the other thing that ASEAN is saying that is it has this non-interference policy where it doesn't interfere in the internal affairs of another state.
That is totally the time to review this non-interference policy, because we are talking about human rights. We are talking about genocide. We are talking about coup after coup in ASEAN member states. And the ASEAN member states are members of the UN, have signed to these international laws to protect the human rights of their own people, the fundamental rights of their own people. And we talk as I said again, if there is bloodshed in Myanmar, it will spill into Thailand, which are bordering countries, like in Cambodia, for example. So ASEAN cannot just push away this situation. ASEAN among themselves have to be very clear that its membership must adhere to the fundamental human rights of the peoples of ASEAN.
Okay, Mu Sochua, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your analysis and thoughts there.